I've had enough. Enough. Enough.
The doctor snapped, grabbing the skull and smashing it to pieces on the floor.
Watch where you're running, kid.
An old beggar shouts at Obi as he almost bumps into him.
Sorry, I'm in a hurry. My father really needs help right now.
Obi replies, still racing toward his destination. Obi, 8-year-old son of the village chief, continues through the bustling streets, centering the lively marketplace of Kwambasi, a beautiful village surrounded by lush greenery. The air is filled with the aromas of fresh produce, spices, and street food. Colorful fabrics flutter from wooden stalls, and vendors shout out their wares while people haggle over prices. Carts overflow with vibrant fruits and vegetables, creating a lively display. The marketplace hums with voices, the clatter of utensils, and the occasional noise of passing animals. Obi, the chief's son, darts through the busy stalls, slipping past people and goods, and finally reaches Makachi's shop. Makachi, a chubby middle-aged woman who is both a full-time fruit seller and a part-time witch doctor, is animatedly arguing with a customer over the price of her fruits, drawing the attention of nearby shoppers.
You have to come with me immediately,
Obi says urgently, interrupting the argument.
My father has been ill since this morning.
What's the matter, son? What's wrong with your father?
Makachi asks, her voice tinged with concern, still holding the ripe yellow papaya and shoving it toward the customer as they argue.
Well, I don't know exactly. He just said to bring you home as quickly as possible.
Obi replies innocently, glancing over at the nearby children who are chasing a few goats, momentarily distracted by their laughter and the fun they're having.
All right, wait here while I gather my things,
Makachi says, after finally finishing with the customer. After collecting her witchcraft items and other essentials, Makachi leaves with Obi, asking her neighbor to watch over the shop while she is gone. Despite her size, she tries to keep up with Obi, huffing and puffing all the way. She finally reaches the chief's house, looking a bit worn out. Chief Tando, a very large man with a big belly, lies on the bed, clutching his stomach. He groans softly, looking as if he's been tossed around by a raging bull and is struggling to find relief.
What's troubling you? How are you feeling now?
Makachi asked, carefully examining the chief.
He's got a terrible stomachache since he came back from that feast in the nearby village last night,
said the chief's wife, standing beside the bed and looking worried.
Last night, you say? And which way did you come back home?
The witch doctor asked curiously.
I took the old, narrow path across the open field. It's the quickest route, and I was running late.
Chief Tando replied, wincing in pain.
So you went past that old creepy well? The one haunted by the lonely old woman's spirit? It's no wonder you're feeling sick. That place is known to bring bad luck,
Makachi said with a spark of intrigue. The chief and his wife exchanged worried glances as the witch doctor began unpacking her bag and arranging her items on the floor. And so began the dramatic yet oddly amusing scene. The room was adorned with herbs, various ritual tools, and simple handmade charms, while symbols and talismans were scattered around. The witch doctor chanted ancient spells, holding a human skull above a bubbling bowl of strange potion, creating a spooky atmosphere in the dim light. The atmosphere was heightened by the witch doctor's face painted with red and white powders, flickering candles casting eerie shadows, and the room thick with the fragrant smoke of burning resins, adding to the surreal and ritualistic ambiance. After several minutes of intense ritual and theatrical chanting, Makachi handed the chief the bowl and instructed him to drink it. This, she promised, would free him from the spirit's possession and lift the bad omen. As the chief took a sip of the potion, his face went through a series of comical expressions. First, he looked doubtful. Then his face scrunched up in disgust, and his tongue stuck out as if he'd tasted something truly awful. His eyes widened in surprise, his lips puckered, and he tried to stay brave, but a small twitch in his mouth revealed his struggle. It was clear he was wondering if he'd made a big mistake or swallowed something really dreadful. Makachi watched, trying to stay serious despite the comical scene. The chief set the bowl down with a heavy sigh, looking relieved but still unhappy. The room was quiet as everyone waited to hear what he would say. After a few moments of concern, the chief finally said that his pain was easing. Relieved, his wife approached Makachi and handed her a bag of maize as a token of gratitude. She accepted it with a warm smile, thankful for the gesture. Packing the bag, Makachi stepped out of the house, saying,
"You'll be well soon."
while gently patting the head of the chief's son, who stood at the door, looking a bit confused and scared. With one last reassuring smile, she headed for the market again. But the relief was short-lived. The pain returned just as quickly as it had faded. Clutching his stomach once more, the chief asked his son to go and fetch Makachi again. As the boy hurried through the streets, he ran into Ubawe, the local guy who just sits around and tells exaggerated stories, entertaining a group of teenagers with his tall tales.
"Obi, where are you going and why do you look so worried?"
Ubawe asked, noticing the urgency on the boy's face. After learning about the situation, Ubawe gathered some locals and went to the chief's house. Once there, he assessed the chief's condition and began recounting one of his infamous tales. Known for exaggerating every incident and weaving them into stories from his own life, he started describing how his uncle had suffered from similar pain and ultimately died from kidney failure, despite everyone's efforts. Hearing this, the chief's wife began to cry loudly, and the chief, furious, shouted at Ubawe to stop or he'd throw him out of the house. Despite the warnings, Ubawe continued, making the chief even angrier. As the chief tried to get out of bed to throw him out, his legs got tangled in his loose dress, causing him to fall face first onto the hard floor.
Ah! My nose, my nose!
The chief cried as it quickly swelled up like a ripe tomato.
You! Wait until I get my hands on you!
Chief Tango yelled. In pain and anger, he threw his son's rubber ball, which had been lying under the bed, at Ubawe. Shockingly, Ubawe dodged and the ball bounced back, hitting the chief's wife in the eye. She screamed,
"My eye, I'm blind, I'm blind!"
Seeing this, the crowd fled. But the stubborn storyteller remained unfazed and stayed behind. Unmoved by the chaos, Ubawe calmly said,
Now, let me see what's happened to your eyes." "Oh my, that looks serious. You could go blind if it's not treated."
As if nothing had happened, he began yet another exaggerated tale about how his great-great-grandmother was hit in the eye by a mango while picking fruit and eventually lost her sight because she didn't treat it. Tragically, she later fell off a bamboo bridge and died. Hearing this, the chief grew furious. He charged at Ubawe, but Ubawe dodged just in time. The chief, with his heavy body, crashed onto the table. Seeing his chance, the storyteller fled, shouting,
"The chief has gone crazy!"
Meanwhile, the chief lay on the ground moaning.
Oh, my stomach, my nose, my back, it all hurts.
His wife covered one eye, crying,
"Where are you going? Come back, you silly goose!"
Meanwhile, in another part of the village, in a modest, cluttered, dimly lit room, an old man around 90 years old is busy preparing his homemade medicines. Though he seems dedicated, he isn't a formally trained doctor, but learned medicine as an apprentice to a British physician who has since returned to his homeland. With no other doctor around, he decided to help the villagers himself. While his efforts are well-intentioned, not all of his remedies work perfectly, and some patients have experienced mixed results. Akosua, a fish seller, rushes to the doctor's house, calling out urgently,
Dr. Chidi! Dr. Chidi!
However, the doctor, having a hard time hearing, doesn't notice her and continues fiddling with his medicines. His poor vision, fading memory, and the dim lighting make it hard for him to see or remember his remedies, causing confusion. Akosua calls out his name again, louder this time, startling the doctor.
Oh Lord, you nearly gave me a heart attack. What do you want? Can't you see I'm busy?
Akosua said,
Doctor, the chief.
Relief? What relief? I haven't even recommended any medicine yet. What's your problem, lady?
The doctor, misunderstanding her due to his hearing issues, replied. The lady said,
No, doctor. The chief has a terrible stomachache. I'm sure your magical remedies can save him. After all, you're the only qualified doctor here in the village.
The doctor initially smiled with pride, but then, realizing what the lady meant, his expression changed from a smile to a skeptical look.
What do you mean? I'm the only qualified doctor, ha?
He asked, feeling offended. Akosua, clearing her throat, said,
No, what I meant was, you're experienced and skilled, so we really need your help.
Yeah, I know. Let me get my medicines ready. So it's a headache, right?
The doctor said, looking doubtful but flattered.
What? No, doctor, it's a stomachache.
The lady corrected him.
That's what I'm saying. The chief has a headache, right?
Good Lord, it's a stomachache.
The lady almost yelled.
Why are you yelling? Do you think I'm deaf?
Just hurry up.
Akosua said, rolling her eyes. They both hurried to the chief's house. At the marketplace, Makachi, the witch doctor, is in a heated argument with her neighbor, accusing her of stealing fruits while she was gone. The chief's son, sent to fetch the witch doctor, waits anxiously for the argument to end. A crowd gathers, divided in support. Meanwhile, the doctor and the fish seller push through the crowd and notice the chief's son, quietly sitting, looking confused and worried.
Why are you just sitting here, son? Where's your father?
Asked Akosua, the fish seller.
He's at home. I came to get the witch doctor, but she's caught up in a dispute.
The child replied innocently.
Don't worry. I've brought the doctor along. He'll take care of your father,
said the fish seller. As they were about to leave, Makachi, the witch doctor, shouted,
Hey, wait for me!
She hurried after them, threatening her neighbor that their argument wasn't over. She demanded the fruits be returned to their spot, or she'd use her magic to turn her into a porcupine. Soon, the trio arrived at the chief's house.
Oh my God, what happened here? Were you fighting with a bull?
The doctor asked, staring in surprise at the shattered table in the corner. The chief's wife, still covering her eyes and crying, said,
Doctor, I've gone blind. I can't see a thing.
Ignoring her, Dr. Chidi walked over to the chief, who was lying on the bed, groaning in pain.
Open your mouth so I can check your teeth. Is this your first toothache?
The doctor asked.
Toothache? Who said I have a toothache?
The chief replied, both confused and annoyed.
Well, the lady over there told me you have a terrible toothache and need a doctor.
The doctor said calmly.
No, doctor, it's a stomachache.
Akosua, the fish seller, said, frustrated.
Yeah, don't worry, I have a cure for everything.
The doctor said proudly.
When did this start? Have you had this pain before? What did you eat yesterday?
He shot off a series of questions, one after another. His rapid-fire questioning seemed more like an interrogation than a medical consultation. The only thing the chief could say was,
I'm about to die. Doctor, do something.
It looks like a severe case of food poisoning.
The doctor said, looking serious and thoughtful. The doctor starts searching through various bottles, pulling out different powders and liquids. He pours some red powder into a bowl, muttering,
How much red powder was it, and how much green liquid? How could I possibly forget?
He scratched his head, struggling to remember the correct amounts.
What are you mixing?
Chief Tondo asked.
It's a new remedy for your illness. Don't worry, you'll feel better after taking it.
The doctor replied. Dr. Chidi poured the green liquid into the red powder, and it began to fizz and bubble.
Is it supposed to do that?
Chief Tando asked, watching anxiously. Dr. Chidi squinted at the bubbling mixture and said,
That's a good sign. Go ahead and drink it.
Dr. Chidi hands over the strange concoction. Chief Tando takes a hesitant sip and makes a face.
This tastes awful. Are you sure it will help?
He asked, grimacing. Dr. Chidi confidently said,
Oh, it's perfectly fine. Sometimes the worst-tasting remedies work the best.
Dr. Chidi grabs another jar of liquid and adds them to the mixture.
And here's an extra touch. More medicine should do the trick.
The doctor said cheerfully. Chief's wife suspiciously asks,
But, are you sure? This doesn't seem right.
Dr. Chidi nodded and assured.
Absolutely. It's a special formula.
Chief Tando reluctantly drinks more of the concoction.
Doctor, this is getting ridiculous. My stomach still hurts, and these remedies are only making it worse.
Chief Tando said, looking frustrated. Dr. Chidi dug deep into his bag and found a jar labeled strong dose. He added a generous amount to the mixture.
This will be the final touch. It's bound to work now.
Dr. Chidi said confidently. Chief Tando took another sip, making faces, and waited hopefully for the magic to happen. However, after a minute or two, the chief's stomach began to rumble and grumble as he twisted on his bed, clutching his stomach. At that moment, Makachi, the witch doctor, burst into the room, breathing heavily from her quick run. Seeing the chief rolling on his bed and the bowl of fizzing, odd-looking medicine, she glared angrily at Dr. Chidi.
What have you done to him, doctor? Couldn't you all wait for me to handle the evil spirit myself?
She scolded the chief's wife.
Now look at this. The spirit has completely possessed the chief. I'll have to start all over again.
The witch doctor said, quickly laying out her tools on the floor. Dr. Chidi, still searching his bag for additional remedies and unaware of the scene around him, jumped from his chair in fright when he spotted a human skull on the floor.
Yay! Holy Lord, what's that?
The doctor exclaimed, eyes wide with shock.
Have you never seen a human skull before? What kind of doctor are you?
The witch doctor shot back.
I have, but what exactly are you doing?
The chief is possessed by a spirit, and I need to perform a ritual to drive it out,
said Makachi, the witch doctor, as she lit candles.
Are you out of your mind? It's clearly food poisoning. I've already given him my special medicine, and he'll be fine soon.
The doctor replied, shrugging his shoulders.
Well, if that's the case, why is he curling up on the bed? He's definitely possessed.
The witch doctor said, glancing at the chief's wife with confirmation.
No, it's a clear case of kidney failure, and I'd bet on it.
The storyteller commented, peeking through the window. He was watching from a safe distance, keeping an eye on his escape route.
What nonsense is this? Be quiet, or I'll transfer the spirit from the chief into you.
The witch doctor warned, her face painted with eerie red and white powders, looking as frightening as a spirit itself. Unable to tolerate such superstitious acts in his presence, the doctor leaped from his chair and demanded that the witch doctor stop her black magic show at once and let him do his work.
Take this, chief, and you'll be relieved of the spirit immediately,
she said, handing the chief a slimy potion and beginning to chant powerful spells, holding the skull in one hand to drive the spirit away.
Don't even think about drinking that dangerous slime. I won't allow it under my watch.
The doctor commanded, pointing at the chief. The chief, still in pain, gazed up at the ceiling and said,
I'm about to die. I see my mother from heaven, arms wide open. My dear. Please take good care of our son.
I'm telling you, it's clearly a sign of kidney.
Ubuwe. The storyteller's words were cut off when the chief threw the bowl at him, which made a sharp thud as it hit his head. Unfortunately, the storyteller, too caught up in the moment, lost his cover by moving closer to the door and peeking inside, giving the chief a clear shot to aim at.
Now, you need this potion more than I do!
With the bowl still spinning on the floor, the storyteller, his face and hair drenched in slime, screamed in shock.
Oh no! Look at what you've done! My brain is leaking! Ah! Hit!
He blacked out before he could finish his sentence.
Did you see that? I told you he is possessed. The spirit made him do it.
The witch doctor declared with confidence.
What nonsense. Have you lost your mind? Stop scaring everyone, or you'll be next.
The doctor warned, shaking with anger.
How dare you talk to me like that, you grumpy old half-doctor?
The witch doctor yelled, her teeth clenched in fury.
I've had enough of your hocus-pocus.
The doctor snapped, grabbing the skull and smashing it to pieces on the floor.
Mummy.
The witch doctor, fuming with rage, yanked on the doctor's bag while he pulled back with all his might. While the tug-of-war over the bag continued, a sudden, long, and trumpet-like sound interrupted them.
Who's blowing that trumpet at this time of day?
The doctor said, looking out the window, still clutching the bag with both hands. Everyone, except the doctor who was still peering outside, turned to see the chief, relieving himself.
Ooh, what's that strange smell? You should really clean up after selling fish, lady.
The doctor said to the fish seller, wrinkling his nose. The chief, feeling much better after the last few gentle gushes of wind, took a deep sigh of relief and with his eyes closed, gently rubbed his stomach. Meanwhile, the aroma of the chief's relief spread through the room like wildfire, causing everyone to hurry outside. The storyteller, now wide awake and still clutching his head, asked disoriented,
Did you manage to get rid of the spirit, lady?
She certainly did.
The doctor said sarcastically, giving the witch doctor a pointed look.
Huh, all it took was a rumbling thunder, hee-hee.
The fish seller said with a chuckle, shaking her head in disbelief.